Hey everybody, welcome back to your free TV. It is Friday, TGIF, October 3rd, 2025, and I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel. Back on your free TV, and I'll just jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. Okay, I'm so glad to be back with you. Here we are. It's a Friday, and there's so much going on, of course. We've got Gaza. We've got so much, and we're going to jump in. But I always start by saying thank you. Thank you so much, especially to my monthly subscribers, donators, the people who donate monthly. You're like my quiet, people. You're the ones that make it happen every month, and I'm so, so grateful. Thank you to Marsha and to Nancy for the donations. And Kristen, we need your address. We're going to send you, of course, that free bottle of C60 Evo. These are the capsules, and c60evo.com/YAFTV, code YAFTV for 10% off. We'll talk about them more. But every month I get to give away 2 bottles, and it's fantastic. We'll talk about it at the end of the video. Okay. So we've got so much to talk about here, and of course we just got the news of the Hamas saying, not agreeing to the 20 points of the peace plan, but saying they will return the hostages, and there's just a huge amount going on besides. So let's jump in, and as usual I like to talk about some interesting and positive things going on, and I think I will start here with the upcoming, on this Sunday, this 250th celebration of the Navy, which started out as the Continental Navy and had so much to do with the French coming in and helping us win the Revolutionary War. And this is going to be happening in Norfolk, Virginia on Sunday. I think it was going to be on Friday, but it's going to be now on Sunday because of the winds and things going on. And the main base will be in Norfolk, the Norfolk Naval Station there. Just think Philadelphia experiment, right? The whole Norfolk situation. Hopefully that won't happen again right now, but who knows, because 3IATLAS, right? We'll get into that in a second, what's going on there. But yeah, as we have the shutdown and we have everything going on, there's a lot of dark areas where we don't know what's going on, but a lot of great stuff is going on. So anywho's, let's just talk about here with this birthday of the Navy. 250 years ago, of course, you had the Battle of the Chesapeake. The Battle of the Chesapeake, largely to do with, I believe, Admiral Hood, and we have the French Navy involved here bigly. They literally were the reason here. This was known as the Battle of the Virginia Capes at the time. It then became known as the Battle of the Chesapeake, and it's where they all met up in Virginia. It's why they're having this 250th celebration of the Navy there. And in Norfolk, where the naval base is, off the coast of there is where they do a lot of their training and a lot of their, just training. And so there'll be, I believe that President Trump is going to be actually flying in, not on a jet to land on an aircraft carrier, but by helicopter, going to be on an aircraft carrier on Sunday towards the end of this. And there's going to be, Secretary of War Hegseth, Secretary of the Navy John Phelan, and there will be this huge celebration. It's called Titans of the Sea, a salute to the fleet. And so it'll be very exciting. I know things like War Room with Bannon, they'll be doing a whole show on Sunday about it. But it's really worth learning your history about this incredible Battle of the Chesapeake that really allowed America to become America. And the French were so involved here to do with this. And this had to do with Admiral, it had to do with Rochambeau and the Expedition Partiolaire. And, I don't speak French, but basically this French fleet that, came with Admiral Francois Joseph Paul, the Comte de Grasse, was able to come in and make it so that Cornwallis's reinforcements couldn't make it to him, and he had chosen the British, of course, General Cornwallis had chosen to go to Virginia and to Yorktown and to get reinforcements there because of all the activity going on in the other places. And so he was expecting to get his reinforcements, and when the French fleet was able to do so much of the damage, they like to aim a lot at the masts and the rigging to just disable the ships, so they couldn't move anymore, rather than wasting tons of artillery just to destroy the ships. And basically, they weren't able to get their reinforcements. Cornwallis was, of course, then allowed to be surrendered, allowed to, be, encircled by the Continental Army, and they were defeated. And it really led. This was in September of 1781. Really became, of course, the what led to the surrender of the British to American forces and the American Revolution. And our lovely country that came out of that, the most fantastic country in the history of the world, basically, that we know of, that isn't hidden in history. And so a very important day to acknowledge as we go through this 250 years of the USA and the celebrations of all the things that made it happen. This battle at Yorktown and the Battle of the Virginia Capes was so central in the ending of the war, the winning of the war by America, okay, and the 13 colonies. So incredible stuff. Check it out. I'll see if I can link below anything that will give you a way to do it. But I know that I'll link articles below that you can link to about the events going on if you're in Virginia or you're around Norfolk and you're in that area. I know in Philadelphia and other places later in the month there'll be more celebrations here of the 250th anniversary of the Navy. But yeah, check it out below, and we'll go on from there. Okay, and so I want to also mention here, just real quick, for people who are interested, as we're wondering, how Trump is leveraging Albert Bourla here through this, what's going down here with Pfizer and this appearance at the White House and how sickening it was. Well, there's a lot going down, and there's going to be a great conference, and the Children's Health Defense Conference here that happens annually. This will be in Austin, Texas, on November 7th to the 9th. And I will link that below. This is a conference that you'd love to go to if that's your wheelhouse for activism and getting involved and taking a role. Everything going on with healing, of course, from autism, from all of the vaccine damage at the conference there in Austin, November 7th to 9th in Texas. And so we'll report more on that as it gets closer, okay? And so I just want to write down a little note here. Okay, Todd Blanche. Yeah. Okay. So I also want to mention here before I get into the meat of news, even though this is pretty newsworthy, of course, is we have the situation of sorry, one more little note to myself. We have the situation of 3IATLAS that I'm always talking about, right? And what's going on today is it's passing by Mars. But conveniently, we get the situation where NASA, conveniently, the timing, as I've been asking and wondering about, the timing of the government shutdown is that now suddenly they don't have enough employees at NASA to talk about what the Perseverance rover or all the different, their capturing of imagery outside Mars, suddenly can't report back what they're seeing about 3IATLAS. And this is as it's going closest to Mars on this very, very interesting trajectory that it's on. It's kind of changed from this bright green to more of a teal bluish color. It doesn't have a giant tail like a comet. 3IATLAS is an interstellar object that is approaching Earth very rapidly, 60 kilometers per second. And I think going to pass Earth around the 30th, I think on the 30th of October. This government shutdown conveniently makes it impossible to get that imagery from NASA. Just shuts down, right? Just they can't, just a massive thing, an anomaly that's never been seen before, but they just can't manage to get those images out to us, of course. And I believe this is all part of it. I believe there's multiple layers to this shutdown, but I do think 3IATLAS is one of them. And so you're getting, at this point now, The glare of the sun is making it really hard for regular researchers to see much of what's going on with 3I ATLAS. And so basically, let's see, we've got last week, like September 25th, about a week ago, there we're seeing, we had like a major coronal mass ejection, like from the sun. There's been this constant solar storm for like a long time now, and it's kind of coming to an end. And this coronal sun ejection had something to do with the changing of the color of 3I ATLAS. And, I think it's just important to understand that's inclination to have this very directed sort of trajectory that it's on, the ecliptic plane, and these timed emission bursts that it seems to have with no tail like a comet and a huge mass. And so the European Space Agency has been slow to really put out anything useful about it either. So that's just another a little tidbit there to understand as we're going through this government shutdown and the total, shall we say, eclipse of what's going on with 3I ATLAS. And so that's all going down. And I'm going to go from there into, of course, Gaza here for a moment and talk about what we've seen here today. So we see that, of course, Hamas has said they will return all of the hostages, okay, and they haven't agreed to the 20-point plan. And we have Trump immediately coming out and saying to Netanyahu that Israel must immediately stop bombing in Gaza. They must stop all of the fighting in danger there, so that the hostages can be properly returned and that they can get closer to securing the final deal of these 20 points. I think they have a bunch of issues with some of them. Hopefully one of them is Tony Blair, Tony Blair's son, is kind of central in the rollout of the digital ID in the UK, one of the primary architects of how it goes forward, which is having massive, of course, giant pushback from the British, who won't accept it. And so that's fantastic. But so we'll see what goes on. We know the Nobel board out of Norway is going to be announcing the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, which of course Trump should get, even though it's a bogus, gross, corrupted prize. But it has represented a lot of amazing things over the years, and of course Trump deserves it a gazillion times over. And so we'll see what goes on there as this is going down. So we'll see, what's going to happen here, right? Because Trump basically, with this board of peace and everything, he says, I really want Iran to be on this board of peace. And he's basically shutting down the greater Israel plan of the insane warmongers of Netanyahu and his ilk. And so we're going to see what goes on here. Will there be an assassination of somebody, right? That seems to be the Mossad specialty, right? Before these things are getting done, will there be an FF? Will there be something to interrupt this, to keep Netanyahu fueled up in his desire? Because inherent in this 20-point plan, of course, is that Israel will never annex or take control of Gaza. And it is the beginnings of a Palestinian state, although this board of peace for the Dubai Riviera, or whatever they're going to do with this massive this massive smart city, or whatever they're going to install here. Hopefully it will be Gazera, as I've been saying, right? But basically, we know also with X, in the last 24 hours, there's been something like 100 or so accounts that have all, the one thing they have in common, as Netanyahu had said last weekend, when he was in town, to his influencers that are paid massive amounts of money, $7,000 per post. We got to go after X. Elon is our friend. We have to talk with him. Well, they talked to somebody, because there's over about 100 accounts that lost their blue check mark, right? Their verification mark. That is important because it allows you to do commerce and do other things that are important to people who rely on this as part of their livelihood. to function and to get their messages out on X. So that just happened in the last 24 hours. At the same time as Kash Patel has, with the FBI, said we are eliminating the IDF, that's funny, the ADL from any connection with the FBI, which has been in concert with the FBI since 1968, like just boot and step. And so, and also the Southern Poverty Law Center, also you have that being named, as Kash Patel put out as well today, that they've also eliminated any connection of the FBI with the Southern Poverty Law Center. Whereas you have people like Candace Owens pointing out that, hey, just so happens that the ADL offices are often in the same buildings as the FBI field offices, talking about Connecticut, and that it was the Connecticut field office that was sent to investigate the Charlie Kirk assassination. And the videos I've been watching today, which are just so fantastic, are of Charlie Kirk's security team as they're shoving him down the trap door. I don't know what they're doing, but they're all smiling, basically. They're all like, no stress, no blood anywhere. They're like behind the table where he's shot and falls down. None of them have any blood. They don't look stressed at all. There's no blood anywhere, and not on their hands. They're not trying to staunch the wound. They're not taking off their shirts to, do anything. They're smiling, half smiling, and certainly not stressed. Certainly not in the mayhem of stress that you would have if you had a dead body bleeding out from the carotid right in front of you. So those are great videos going around. I'm sure you've seen some of them, and so trapdoor to Valhalla. Let's hope. Let's hope. But the gaslighting situation here just points to this ongoing war that's going on. There is this war of information, and Trump seems to be doing this kind of counter leveraging bribery situation, because when we look at the massive leviathan that is the globalist, unseen cabal, whatever you want to call it. Okay, the economy of sin that rules the world. This cabal with the intelligence services and deep entrenched in our government is so massive that to go head on, and what it would do as far as we're going to just arrest everybody Epstein, we're going to cancel the Fed, we're going to do it all right now. It's kind of impossible, right? And we wish that the Trump team does have 2028, as he keeps wearing those hats around and putting them in front of the Democrats right before the shutdown. Very funny. But we have to understand that this is so massive that it can't be done all out in the open all the ways we want. But we don't like being gaslit, and we have to understand and kind of make our demands known. Like, for instance, Todd Blanche and his interruption of so much that's going on here. And in their eyes, whether that's the weaponization team going too fast, they keep slowing everything down. What is James Comey giving over? And what appears to me, I keep saying, this flip stance of him going first to basically secure whatever he can for himself by giving as much information as possible. And so we saw that with Todd Blanche and Control doing the Lisa Monaco role over there at the DOJ, that he, as soon as Trump, took out that U.S. attorney, right, in Virginia and put in Lindsay Halligan, she is literally like an insurance attorney. Okay, she's like, what? It throws her in there, and like within 36 hours, we get the indictment of Comey. And so obviously there's some skirting around here. But Todd Blanche, having been recommended to Trump by Boris Epstein, Epstein being the one who was caught out for doing pay-for-play behind the scenes, he's the one that brought Todd Blanche to Trump because he had also been a lawyer for Epstein. And Boris Epstein has been called out and went through some serious talking to, right, by the Trump administration for his attempt to extort money out of people on who were being interviewed for Trump positions. And we have people like Scott Bessent, who's kind of a brawler, right? He's punching Elon Musk for entertainment purposes only. He's getting in brawls, right? And Epstein apparently to him was trying to extort 40, put him on wanted Scott Bessent, our Secretary of the Treasury, to put him on a $40,000 per month retainer for his advocacy to be able to, vie for Scott Bessent being the Secretary of the Treasury. Secretary Bessent said, no, not doing that, reported it immediately to those around him. And it was other things as well. Invest 10 million into this 3-on-3 basketball team, like just bizarre stuff. But we're so glad Scott Bessent got in because, of course, Larry Fink was vying for the job as well, right? And instead he went and is ruling the cabal through the World Economic Forum and everybody's pension funds and half of the world. You look at like Larry Ellison, and a lot of people don't know he owns the island of Lanai in Hawaii. He owns Lanai, like 98% of it, bought it for like $300 million. The old, way back when, pineapple plantation. They stole it from the Hawaiians. And now Larry Ellison owns that island. And so, he's now, he is the one who gets to be involved here, who funds the IDF, and we just lost all those check marks on X, right? And the TikTok purchase and everything going on with Ellison and Oracle and ChatGPT, and what's going to be done or not done, perhaps, in Israel's names with those communication mechanisms. So very interesting. And from there, we'll see what goes down. We'll see what goes down here as we approach. Trump had kind of given Hamas an extension till like Sunday night. I think he just did that to confuse Netanyahu because, of course, the next day we get into October 7th and the 2-year anniversary, and I think Netanyahu wanted the full obliteration of Gaza at that point. And I think that was a misdirection. Trump was constantly using his Truth Social for misdirection. And this misdirection about this deadline for Hamas being Sunday night, which would be October 7th in Israel, was, I believe, that the negotiations were already, clear at that point. So, barring some assassinations and murders or false flags, we'll see what goes down. Because that is, I believe, what Trump was trying to prevent was the second October 7th surprise, although it could be another October 7th surprise, right? So we just pray for the complete, that any plans that the economy of sin might have to disrupt this peace process, even though we don't know what's going on here with this board of peace, Trump, after he's president, just still being the board of peace, guy, way into his 80s or whatever, to know that this is the better alternative. Okay, this is the better alternative. And so we'll see what goes down, and we'll just keep following it, right? And so I wanted to go to here because we had this huge shift, of course, on, was it September 5th? Is it that long ago? I just feel like everything's flying by. Oh, excuse me. No, it was just a few days ago. Too funny. Okay, well, what we've got here is that Trump, changed his stance on Russia, and everybody's freaking out when he's like, and again, I believe that what Trump does on Truth Social is sometimes, signal, sometimes noise, and that his whole stance with Russia and this situation of, Zelensky, they're waiting for those Tomahawk missiles. The U.S. might give strike satellite information directly to Ukraine. All of this, Estonia, Poland, all this airspace of Russian drones and all the propaganda and baloney going on out there. You have Putin coming out the other day in his speech talking to the EU and saying, the EU and the Western countries are behaving like the Soviet Union was. and the Soviet Union was defeated. The Soviet Union is over. It doesn't exist anymore, but they're behaving like the Soviet Union. And if Germany wants to build up a big army and do all that and literally attack Russia, well, have at, good luck is basically what he said. He came out and said, no one's ever been able to accomplish it. No one's ever won against Russia in these desires to attack the motherland. And so very, very strong words there. But one thing that's behind the scenes here, and I'll credit Forbidden News, they just do such a great job over there. She's fantastic. Forbidden.news, I'll link it below. But pointing out something that I've been meaning to talk about for quite a while, to do with, of course, there's all the rumors of Xi in China being ill. All those organ transplants aren't doing it. And who knows if they're poisoning him or what's going down. But there's huge changes rumbling around in China, and this has been going on, and it's not just like that great, the Miles Go crowd, with the new Democratic State of China, or whatever it's called. This is within the CCP itself, feeling that there's factions in there wanting to very much align with Trump and the West here, and not go the Cold War style of trying to pop off a World War III. And so very interesting here is at the United Nations General Assembly, you have Chinese Premier Li Jiang disappearing for 5 hours during the assembly. And what's been leaked out of this is that he flew to D.C. during this time period. He flew to D.C. to meet with Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and basically pass on messages from what are considered the three elders of the CCP, who are going against Xi and some of the other, what they feel to be fanatical and brutal aspects that these three elders, I'll name them in a moment, are saying that China wants to go back to a reform stance in China, wants to go back into moving away from the extreme control and deprivation of the Chinese, wants to get into a more modern society, and that they're saying that Xi is super aligned with Putin in Russia and North Korea, and really, really pushing for this World War III scenario that is being ginned up, of course, by the banksters. It's being ginned up by the banksters, not being ginned up by Putin, but it is a massive threat. And as I was saying before, behind the scenes, I believe Trump is doing something completely different here. However, he changed the stance at this point after getting these messages from Li Jiang, the Chinese premier. So what did they say? So this was from these three CCP elders, Hu Jintao, Wen Jiabao, and General Zhang Yuxia. And again, I don't speak Chinese. Okay, but basically they said that Xi's power is massively diminished, aided by his illness. Who knows if they're aiding his illness, but probably likely. But his power is massively diminished in the party. He's getting more and more kind of reckless and brutal in his dictates, what his doctrine is, and that they are the ones basically saying that they're claim control of the CCP, of the Chinese Communist Party, and they want to return China to the reform era and see good relations with the USA again, and they want Trump to visit China, and they would believe it could be a turning point basically for the Chinese people to see this, and for there to be possibly a change in power. So it's kind of a huge deal, kind of massive, and they claim that Xi Jinping's doctrine is just not survivable for China, and that they want to prevent that, and they want to reset the Chinese going forward. So we'll see. It's you just can never trust what's coming down, but very interesting to see that this is going down behind the scenes. So much did go on during that United Nations General Assembly. I believe the president of Iran also Again, multiple messages going through to Trump, leading to Trump doing this thing about wanting Iran on the board of peace, and the president saying, we're not going to, unless there's, a full, um, uh, that we fully get guarantees of Israel not attacking us, we'll never negotiate on this situation around our uranium production here, and getting it past 60% into being, into nuclear weapons and all this. So, there's a lot going on here, and we have to remember that it's not all what it looks like, okay, in tweets or truth socials, okay. And so moving on from there, very intense stuff. I wanted to move on to uh, let's see. I wanted to move into the shutdown, and we know that meant that Trump met with Russ Vought over the weekend, or excuse me, in the last couple of days, and that basically this plan to totally do a massive shave down on the federal government, right? And of course, Russ Vought has been planning this for a long time in his analysis, for getting into the Office of Management and Budget, of how they can basically, traumatize the deep state, right? How they can cut the excess in the money, in the clawbacks, in the impoundments, rescissions, all of it. But during a shutdown, they can really completely end appropriated money going to globalist ends, cut the government massively, the federal government, restructure the agencies, and I believe that this is about to. We saw the Senate vote fail again today. We know that the Dems have a huge, massive get-together party out there, I believe in Napa next weekend, and we'll see what goes down, because I don't believe this is, this vote failing again today is about, oh, they just want that $1.5 trillion extra in this clean CR that they just presented, just to continue the government for another 3 weeks. Something obviously massively larger is going on here to keep the government shut down. And I think it's leverage again by Trump, unless it's like 3IATLAS is like, that movie Deep Impact, and we're like, something's bad's going down. We got the green aliens, whatever's going to go on. But I think the leverage against Schumer and other senior Democrats is huge, and this gets into the Medicare fraud. And we know that it's California alone, and these are small numbers compared to the massive fraud, that they've identified at least $9 billion in Medicaid fraud to do with illegals getting Medicaid, and Medicare, and that California is getting like 70% of that, so 6.5 billion or whatever, and Massachusetts, New York, all these states and these Dem states, and when you hear Trump coming out and saying we're going to start, we're clawing back all the funding of the green projects, all the funding of these grifting projects, which is what they are, because you have these green projects that just come into, like, in New Jersey, paying $900, a month for electricity, right? They're doing anything to help, and it's because all the money goes out the window to go back to the grift. And so I believe that there's leverage here going on behind the scenes to do with, Doge found incredible, like this was, it's hundreds of millions, but it's in the billions, obviously, of Medicare, Medicaid fraud. They found that hundreds of millions of this was going overseas, this money that was being grifted. Remember with Thompson, the CEO of United Health, being murdered, and he was supposed to go and testify before the Senate a few weeks later, and Andrew Whitty, the other CEO at United, testifying, to do with the hacking and the stealing of the information, all this. Doge already uncovered, the hundreds of millions going overseas, the giving out of the completely against the law Social Security numbers so that they could have this Medicare, Medicaid grift. and that I believe that they have a lot of these senior um, Congress members in their by the short hairs here, and leveraging this government shutdown and saying, oh, it's because Schumer doesn't want to be primaried by AOC. You know, whatever. You know, I mean, if AOC is going to take over from Schumer, he's kind of, you know, done soon. He won't. I don't think he'll be doing a Dianne Feinstein style like wheelchair, you know, to his dying day thing. I think Schumer um, probably will, you know, put down his gavel soon and get out. But what I'm saying here is I think there is something massive going on behind the scenes with the leverage against these people that will allow Russ Vought, that Trump put out this great video of him as the Grim Reaper, an AI video, coming in to do this restructuring of the federal government. And I pray it's true. I pray it's true because it's the only thing that makes sense. Nothing else makes sense. That they would shut down the government because they can't get their extra money right now when they could just get it in a few months. It all just has, you know, it looks like a beard. It looks like a fake move. And so I'm just calling it out for the fake move that I think it is. And so let's see here. I think I want to just talk about Blanche again because this Todd Blanche holding things up situation is interesting, and you know, the fact that he was introduced to Trump by Boris Epshteyn, the whole corruption there, but you know, there's also um, uh, let's see here. I wanted to talk about you know, Peter Tickton, Trump's longtime friend, like longtime lawyer and friend, running Trump's companies with him way back um, in the day, like to the extent of when Trump was in military school. Like Peter Tickton has known him forever, and he is warning against Todd Blanche, and he is saying that he's the fox in the henhouse, and that this is very disturbing. And he's the one holding up all the ways to get the election steal stuff sorted out right now, which, of course, with the small beginning of James Comey, it goes from there, from Russiagate to the election steal to the J6, you know, sedition, to all of their treason, basically. And so this is what Peter Tickton, legalbrains.com, Trump's a long time, since he was a teenager, has known this guy. And to the extent where he was basically saying, oh, when Trump was in military school, he was a very cool-headed leader. Even at the age of 17, he would never go off or get in fights or whatever. He was just a very cool-headed, fair, and extremely intelligent person, capable of incredible greatness. And Tickton also said, you know, they have all the Zoom meetings of those calls from the J6 committee. They have all the calls and the Zoom calls, basically. They have the video of the planning of J6, the Fedsurrection, all of it, but it's being held up. And this situation of prosecuting these lawsuits against the election steal, the getting rid of the machines, you know, the whole massive cabal involved there, from Pilgrim Society to all the different countries involved, that they have it. Okay, and Todd Blanche comes out of Cadwallader, Wickersham, and Taft, the oldest, super prestigious law firm in New York. Literally the oldest law firm in New York. They like, their starting charge is like $900 for like super assistant, you know, prosecutor at the firm. They, you know, the next step up is $1,000 per hour. Very expensive people here. You know, Pilgrim Society, I'm going to throw in there. I'm sure connected to all the judges within of the courts. This is all interesting, and so, you know, I'm just putting it out there. We're going to find out more. He's married to Todd Blanche's wife is Vueg, Christine Vueg Blanche. Christine with a K, spelled kind of German, and Vueg, you know, whatever. And she owns some kind of integrative healing and spa situation. He grew up nice growing up there in on Long Island at a hamlet there, and And, so we're going to, the one thing that's so difficult with the right is that we could do so much more grassroots. Like, a couple dozen people in front of the White House with old time picket signs saying, you know, Todd Blanche, get out Todd Blanche, no Lisa Monaco 2.0, or at our state capitol buildings or somewhere to get that out there, that we're onto something with this massive blockade, right? How can Lindsey Halligan go in 36 hours get that indictment passed through, right? These U.S. attorneys that are holding out for the deep state and seem to be ultra connected to Todd Blanche. So we're going to keep checking that out. We're going to keep looking at it, okay? And so so many people have talked about this that I probably, I'll just mention it quick, but, Netflix failing horrendously, that's kind of fun. For all their woke garbage and just disgusting stuff. They've lost like over $15 billion in revenue from canceled subscriptions. That's a lot of money, $15 billion. I kind of love this, and I think it's fantastic. And so I'm going to be kind of leaving it there today. I know it's a shorty, but it is Friday, and I want to get this out before it's too late. I know when videos get out too late, people sometimes don't get to them, and so I'm going to be cutting this one a bit short tonight. I will mention here, of course, we have MTG, who is just doing fantastic work as always, posting this week, basically after Kirk's death and all the threats coming out of Israel and all the threats that she's constantly getting and whatever could happen, in these next few days with FFs. She did post out this week that she is not suicidal. And if she's killed, please identify the foreign government responsible for my death, right? Her trying to protect her life, protect herself, because of the massive threats that she's under for calling out Israel. And so, yeah, we pray for you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. You'll be protected in God's armor and continue to bless all of us with your incredible service. You're one of the bravest and, only trustworthy Congress members out there. And so, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave it. There's so much more besides, but that's kind of where I am for today. Thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate you on every level for supporting the channel, your subscriptions, your, yeah, please do subscribe and like, it does help. It does help with the algorithms. And so I appreciate that if you could. And thanks so much for supporting. If you found something new information in this channel, like in this video, and you want to support, there's ways to do so below, and it's so appreciated. And I thank my sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV, code YAFTV for 10% off. There is 15% off for anybody, anytime that's ever donated to the channel. You get a link sent to you with a different, a new link and a different code for 15% off. This is the incredible ESS60 Uber Ultra Pure carbon 60 molecule made in the best lab in the world in Houston, Texas. And basically it gets into your mitochondria, cleans out the garbage, gives you better focus, better clarity, better sleep, and it fights inflammation. It's used in the big C clinics for all their protocols for the alternative crowd that is looking to find complementary medicine to get out of big pharma to fight their degenerative diseases. So we pray for the longevity medicine coming. We pray for those quantum healing beds. And in the meantime, we clean out ourselves, because cellular health is what is the only thing that you must have to fight degenerative diseases. So c60evo.com/YAFTV. Thanks so much for watching. Super appreciate you. And I will see you Monday. I will see you then. You are free. Get outside. Get with your fellowship on Sunday. Be with nature. Be with people. Get off the devices and just give your prayers and love to God and to each other, because that's what's so important. And get grounded on the earth. Get your feet in the soil. Get your hands in the soil, and get all of that great microbiome moving. Just be part of the living outside of digital fake world. Okay, you are free, and I'll see you Monday.